Joe Louis's feet kicked empty air. 210 pounds of wrestler muscle dangled like a child's toy, suspended by the explosive force of his own failed attack. Bruce Lee's forearm pressed deeper into the exposed throat. Tightening with surgical precision, the warm-up room's fluorescent lights blazed overhead, too bright, too sharp. Joe's gold medal swung wild against his bare chest. Each pendulum arc slapped his sternum with dull metallic thuds. The air tasted copper. He clawed upward, fingers grasping at nothing. His face darkened from red to purple. The smaller man hung off him, 135 pounds of coiled wire, yet the choke cinched tighter with every desperate breath Joe couldn't take. Blue mats blurred below, white ceiling tiles fractured into kaleidoscope patterns. Against the far wall, three silhouettes stood frozen. William Torr's pen hovered mid-note. Marcus Chen's borrowed camera trembled in his grip. Neither man breathed, neither moved. Joe's vision tunneled. His champion's shoulders sagged. The gold medal felt impossibly heavy now, dragging him down even as he hung suspended. His heartbeat thundered inside his skull like fists against a locked door. But what happened in the next 3 seconds would change everything he thought he knew about fighting. 15 minutes earlier, the hallway had been just another victory lap. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Voices ricocheted off concrete walls, victory shouts, referee calls, the metallic clang of lockers. The air smelled of sweat and liniment. Joe Louis moved through the chaos like a battleship, gold medal heavy against his chest, still warm from the podium lights. Bruce Lee stood near the equipment room, speaking with 2 younger fighters. His black silk shirt clung to his frame, 135 pounds of precise movement. Joe stopped 3 feet away. The medal caught the light. "Your demonstration was theatrical," Joe said. His voice carried easy confidence. "But tournament fighting is real contact, real pressure." Bruce's eyes sharpened. The conversation around him died. "You are right." Bruce's tone held no defensiveness, no ego, just acknowledgement. Then his head tilted slightly. "Would you like to test the difference?" Joe's grin came automatic, champion reflex. "Test how?" Bruce gestured down the hallway toward the warm-up rooms. The smaller man's expression remained unreadable, calm water over unknown depths. "Follow me," Bruce said, and Joe, gold medal swinging with each step, walked toward the door that would. The warm-up room was empty except for them. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, casting sterile light across blue mats. The air smelled faintly of floor wax and old sweat. Joe pulled his gi top over his head. The fabric caught briefly on his shoulders, thick slabs of muscle carved from years of wrestling, 210 pounds of explosive power. He tossed the uniform aside. The gold medal swung against his bare chest. Bruce stood opposite him, utterly still, 135 pounds. His frame looked like wire wrapped around bone, each muscle visible beneath olive skin. No tension showed in his posture, just calm. Behind them, William Torres leaned against the wall, notepad forgotten in his hand. Marcus Chen hovered near the doorway, camera hanging idle. Neither spoke. Joe rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck. His mind drifted back to high school. The state championship mat, opponents twice his size crumpling when he shot the double leg. That technique had never failed him, not once in 67 matches. He bounced lightly on the balls of his feet, tested his weight distribution. Bruce's eyes tracked the movement, nothing else moved. The distance between them measured perhaps 10 feet, then 9. Joe took 1 step forward, breath steady, confidence absolute. Bruce's hands rose slowly to chest height, palms open. Bruce's voice cut the silence like a blade. "Try to grab me." Joe's muscles coiled. "Use your strength," Bruce added, palms still open. No hesitation. Joe exploded. His level change was textbook, hips dropping, shoulders driving forward, hands shooting toward Bruce's knees like pistons. 67 matches, 67 victories. The blue mat compressed under his driving feet. The fluorescent lights blurred into streaks above him. Bruce's hips snapped backward in a sprawl, weight sinking. but his hands did not push Joe's head down. They moved inward instead, around. One forearm sliding across Joe's throat, the other hooking beneath his left bicep. The motion felt almost gentle, then it locked. Joe's fingers grazed Bruce's shin, so close, but suddenly his neck was encased in a vise of bone and tendon. He tried to pull back, could not. The angle was wrong. His own forward momentum had delivered him into the trap like a gift. The smell of sweat and canvas filled his nostrils as his breath shortened. In the corner, Marcus Chen's camera shutter clicked once. Soft, final. Joe's lungs began to scream. His 210 pounds, once his greatest advantage, now hung suspended in the architecture of Bruce's grip, amplifying the pressure with every heartbeat. Joe refused to submit. His legs fired, quads burned. 210 pounds of wrestler surged upward. Bruce's feet left the mat. 6 inches, then 12. The smaller man dangled from Joe's neck like a pennant in hurricane wind, his 135 pounds suspended entirely by Joe's upward drive. William Torres gasped from the corner. Marcus Chen's camera tilted, following the impossible geometry. Joe's chest swelled with savage triumph. No technique survived raw power. He would shake Bruce off like a dog shaking water. But the forearm across his throat didn't loosen, it tightened. Each inch Joe rose amplified the pressure. His own explosive force drove his larynx deeper into the crook of Bruce's elbow. The choke wasn't weakening. Joe was pulling it tighter with every desperate surge, cinching the noose with his own strength. His vision flickered, white bloomed at the edges, the fluorescent lights above smeared into halos. His mouth opened, hunting air that wouldn't come. Copper flooded his tongue. The gold metal swung against his bare chest, suddenly heavy as an anchor, dragging him toward some dark ocean floor he couldn't see but could feel rushing up to meet him. Bruce's grip remained exactly the same. Joe's legs began to tremble. Time stopped being linear. Joe's heartbeat thundered inside his skull, each pulse a kettle drum echoing against bone. The fluorescent lights overhead stretched into white smears, ceiling tiles melting like wax under a flame. His quadriceps trembled, gave, his knees buckled by degrees, slow motion collapse that felt like sinking through honey. The gold metal swung against his bare chest, impossibly heavy now, dragging him toward the mat like an anchor tied to a drowning man. Copper flooded his tongue, metallic, warm. His right hand abandoned its grip on Bruce's arm and slapped against the smaller man's ribs, once a wild, desperate smack, twice harder, 3 times frantic percussion against sweat-slicked skin. The universal language, the only word left, I surrender. Bruce's forearm vanished from Joe's throat instantly, arms releasing like a sprung trap. Air rushed back into Joe's windpipe in a scalding torrent. He crumpled forward onto his hands and knees, coughing, gagging, each breath a ragged saw cutting through inflamed tissue. William Torres exhaled audibly from the corner. Marcus Chen's borrowed camera trembled in his grip. Joe pressed his forehead against the cool blue mat, vision swimming, and felt Bruce kneel beside him with a gentleness that somehow terrified him more than the chokehold had. The pressure vanished. Joe's knees struck the mat hard. Air clawed its way into his lungs, raw and desperate. He coughed, doubled over, hands braced against blue vinyl that smelled of old sweat and rubber. His throat burned like someone had dragged a rope through it. Each breath tasted of copper and shame. Bruce landed beside him without sound. That is not karate, Joe rasped, the words scraping out. Bruce knelt close. His breathing steady, unaffected. Exactly. Joe looked up through watering eyes. Karate assumes your opponent fights like a karateka, Bruce said, his voice calm as still water. I assume nothing. He gestured toward Joe's shoulders, those wrestler muscles that had lifted state championship trophies. Your strength gave me the leverage I needed. You lifted me. The logic hit harder than the choke had. Joe had powered himself into unconsciousness. His own explosive force, the weapon that never failed, had become the trap. Bruce had simply held on and let physics do the rest. If I had let go, Joe started. You would have won, Bruce finished. His eyes held something Joe could not yet name, but you did not know to let go, and that, Bruce stood, extending his hand downward, is why you lost before you ever grabbed my legs. What else had Joe never learned to see? Bruce moved before Joe finished coughing. His hands positioned Joe's stance, hips squared, knees bent. Again, shoot. Joe lunged forward, slower this time, uncertain. Bruce's palms pressed against Joe's forehead, sprawling him backward. Your weight is here, it should be here. He tapped Joe's heels, then his chest. Feel the difference. They drilled. Bruce demonstrated underhook positions, his forearm sliding beneath Joe's armpit, controlling the bigger man's posture with minimal contact. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, marking each minute. Sweat pooled on the blue mats, turning them slick. William Torres sat cross-legged in the corner, pen scratching across a notepad, capturing angles and terminology. Marcus Chen adjusted the borrowed camera, film reels clicking softly as history spooled through the mechanism. Joe said nothing, no protests, no questions about credentials. He simply moved when Bruce moved, absorbed corrections without resistance, his tournament arrogance evaporating like steam. Bruce paused after an hour, breathing steady. You defend takedowns now better than most black belts. But there is something else you need to understand, something about why strikers fail against wrestlers even when they know these techniques. Joe looked up, throat still raw. What no one teaches you is. Bruce stepped back, the drilling stopped. Joe's lungs burned with each breath, his tournament gaze soaked through at the shoulders. Sweat pooled in the hollow of his collarbone. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, suddenly too bright, too clinical. His legs trembled from the repetitions, sprawls, underhooks, weight transfers, each correction absorbed without argument. The gold medal hung heavy against his sternum, cold metal on overheated skin. Bruce slid down the wall until he sat cross-legged on the blue mat, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Sweat glistened on his forearms. He closed his eyes for 3 seconds, opened them. Joe couldn't hold it anymore. Why teach me? His voice cracked on the last word. After I dismissed you in that hallway. The question hung between them like smoke. Bruce tilted his head, studying Joe with that unnerving calm. Because you are willing to learn now, Joe blinked. Pride closed your mind. Bruce's hand gestured toward the space where they drilled. Defeat opened it. Humility is not weakness, Joe. It is the first step to mastery. The words landed soft, precise. Joe felt something shift beneath his ribs, something larger than technique, deeper than takedown defense. Few could understand what he felt in that moment, standing before a man half his size who just dismantled everything he thought he knew. What Bruce saw in him next would determine whether he stayed a champion or became something history would remember. 3 years later, Joe sprawled automatically when the wrestler shot low. His hips dropped, his hands found the underhook. The opponent crashed face first into canvas, momentum destroyed. The arena erupted. Referees raised Joe's arm for the 14th consecutive victory. Camera flashes exploded backstage like white fireworks. A reporter thrust a microphone toward his sweat-slicked face. The voice cut through the chaos. Joe, your grappling defense is legendary now. What changed? Joe wiped his forehead, feeling the old burn in his throat like phantom memory. The gold medal from Long Beach hung in his gym, untouched for 36 months. Bruce Lee showed me something, he said, voice steady. Winning tournaments is different from knowing how to fight. I was a tournament expert. He paused, tasting salt on his lips. Now I am a complete martial artist. The reporter scribbled frantically. Joe felt no pride in the admission, no shame either, just truth, clean and sharp as a blade. Somewhere across the country, Bruce was teaching in a small school, building students who would carry the lesson forward. The warm-up room existed only in memory now, but the principle remained. Humility had opened the door. Mastery walked through it, the rest was simply practice.